Somebody said Sam Harris talks about his airport experience. What was the timestamp for this?
You know, airport security is focused on who could actually be a terrorist.
Yeah.
And, you know, the American is very much not. It tries to enforce this sort of egalitarian thing that irradiates everybody, you know.
Okay, don't care, actually. Hey, Steven, do you want to debate Jay Dyer or Andrew Wilson or whatever? I love you, but not at this time.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
It's only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear of him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. Then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir.
Isn't the issue, I haven't followed much on this story because it seems super fucking unhinged. Isn't the issue that they're giving him a thing? Can he really, I must have misread this. It can't be that I read this correctly. That it's personally for him and he's allowed to keep it after he leaves the presidency? That can't be it, right? There's no way that's...
President Trump preparing for a major foreign trip, leaving tomorrow for crucial meetings in the Middle East. Hi, I'm Phil Lipoff. He will make stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE over the next several days, and notably no plans to visit Israel. The trade war, ongoing attacks in the Middle East, and peace talks in the Russia-Ukraine war are expected to dominate much of that discussion. And while in Qatar, sources tell ABC News, President Trump is expected to accept what's likely the most expensive gift a foreign government has ever given to a U.S. president, a super luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet.
Bro, he flipped sides? Wait, hold on.
Preparing for a major foreign trip, leaving tomorrow for crucial meetings in the Middle East. Hi, I'm Phil Lipoff. He will make stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE over the next several days, and notably no plans to visit Israel. The trade war, ongoing attacks in the Middle East, and peace talks in the Russia-Ukraine war are expected to dominate much of that discussion. And while in Qatar, sources tell ABC News, President Trump is expected to accept what's likely the most expensive gift a foreign government has ever given to a U.S. president, a super luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet the president plans to use as the new Air Force One. Aviation experts say the plane is worth an estimated $400 million before the U.S. Air Force makes modifications that the president will need. Let's get right to ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang and ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. Selena, I want to begin with you. What are President Trump's top priorities outside of the jet with this trip to the Middle East?
He was saying the plane must be full of monitoring and listening devices. I'm sure that there's going to... obviously the Air Force or whoever does our defense shit is going to be going through every part of this electronically to make sure that that shit's not there, right?
Does this luxury plane from Qatar raise any red flags in Washington?
Yeah, well, Phil, first of all, the fact that the president is choosing Saudi Arabia as the first major foreign trip of his second term just signifies this growing political and economic relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia under the Trump administration. You'll remember that Saudi Arabia was also where President Trump had chosen to take his first foreign trip in his first term, and he's once again breaking tradition by skipping over America's closest neighbors. Now, this does come as the Gulf has played a critical role in mediating conflicts around the world, including the war in Ukraine, with Saudi Arabia serving as a venue for separate U.S. talks with both Russia and Ukraine. This also comes as the Trump administration is trying to make progress when it comes to the humanitarian crisis and the war in Gaza. Now, when it comes to that luxury plane, it certainly raises questions about whether or not it's legal for the Trump administration and ultimately the Trump Presidential Library Foundation to accept such a valuable gift from a foreign power. But sources...
Presidential Library Foundation. The U.S. Presidential Library System is a nationwide network of 16 libraries administered by the largest part of national archives, preserving and making available papers. Like, are you allowed to take stuff from it afterwards? Like, can they keep it personally?
certainly raises questions about whether or not it's legal for the Trump administration and ultimately the Trump Presidential Library Foundation to accept such a valuable gift from a foreign power. But sources are telling us that both the White House and the Department of Justice have concluded that because the gift doesn't come with any conditions, it's not conditioned on any official act, they're considering that this does not constitute bribery.
Mick, what's most at stake as President Trump meets with these leaders?
So, Phil, of course, there is a lot of economic aspects to this, particularly investments in the United States when it comes to these countries. But it's also important to point out that a lot of our military assets in the region are housed and hosted by these countries, including our forward command.
Have streams gotten quieter in the last month?
It doesn't come with any conditions. It's not conditioned on any official act. The
government has ever given to a U.S.
You need to get your hearing checked. You need to go to the audiologist and you need to get a hearing aid, okay? It's your problem. You have issues.
And center for Central Command and our major air operations, major maritime operations are all in this region, some of which are hosted by the countries you already mentioned. So it is important for us to show our appreciation for that because it gives us the ability to project force to this region that's really unparalleled among any other countries.
And Selena, these trade talks between the U.S. and China are underway, as you know, in Switzerland. I know you've been digging into this. Any progress towards lowering tariffs yet?
Yeah, well, we're on day 2 now of these talks in Switzerland, and it's unclear exactly where these discussions stand, but we're getting positive signs from the White House. So you have President Trump posting on Truth Social that great progress is being made, adding that it was a, quote, total reset. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters today in Switzerland that, quote, substantial progress has been made and that a briefing will be held tomorrow on the conversations. This also comes as, quote, substantial progress has been made and that a briefing will be held tomorrow on the conversations. This also comes as Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told reporters that a deal has been made with China. Take a listen to what else he said.
Just remember why we're here in the first place. The United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
So, Phil, we've reached out to the White House for clarification on whether or not...
Resolving that national emergency.
So, Phil, we've reached out to the...
We've reached? Really? We've reached out?
The White House
work toward resolving that national emergency.
So, Phil, we've reached out to the White House for clarification on whether or not a deal has actually been reached since the Treasury Secretary described the talks as progress being made, not a deal actually being struck. Remember, going into these conversations, Phil, U.S. officials had downplayed expectations, saying that this meeting was really more about de-escalating tensions, not actually coming to a full trade agreement. And we also have yet to hear officially from Beijing.
All right, Selena Wang, Mick Mulroy, thank you both.
Bro, upcycling supercapacitors is actually fucking cancer AIDS. This is cancer AIDS. Or these upcycling centers probably need to be way, 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 way bigger, I guess. All right. Aspen slop.
But the fact is that this is the reason why...
Wait, hold on. Okay, just kidding.
Why I am in favor of deporting all the green card holders. It's because we already have enough Hassans. We already have enough of these. We have enough of these people on our own. We don't need to bring in new ones from China. We don't need this. We've already got enough of these people on our own. We've got these problems ourselves. We can deal with these guys, but do we need to bring in new ones too? You're not even a citizen and you're here and you're causing these trouble. Absolutely not. So no, by the way, I take absolutely no responsibility in Hassan getting detained, but I wish I did. The fact is that he does support terrorist propaganda, and by any, again, the honest question, would you want the TSA, and ask yourself the question, would you want the TSA and the people that are vetting the individuals coming inside of our country to do additional questioning towards people that have a record for supporting known terror groups? Would you want them to do that? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. 100% yes. And I think even he would say that. He would have to say that. How would you say no to this? So if anything, this is a huge W. You're a terrorist? To some furries I am, but not to America, okay? And so that's the difference. You 100% need immigration to keep going. Yes, it's crazy. To keep birth rates declining, you can't afford services without people paying taxes. Listen, if you want to have... the only way for us to keep the country going is to import an infinite number of people from other countries that hate the country and don't want to assimilate with the culture. Yeah, I don't know. I think that we could figure out another option, right? And yeah, maybe we can come up with a plan B there. So I don't know what to say. Do you think the Fed should interview Hassan and see what contacts he has? No, I don't think they need to interview him. I mean, they have this is the federal fucking government, right? Like, they have every tool and every resource available to them to do all of this investigation without even telling him that's happening. Like, I mean, these guys, like the guys that you have, your average Joe, Paul Blart mall cop guys, and those guys are really not, let's be honest, really, they're not America's best in a lot of cases, right? Now, they're trying, and I respect them for trying, but they're really not America's best. But you do have the guys that are working at, the FBI. Like, these guys are smart, okay? They can figure this shit out in like 5 minutes.
It's not so much for them, like, talking about who, like, America's best is or anything. It's more just, like, what is your job, right? Like, if you're, whatever, working in, wherever the fuck random place, it's not your job to have access to or to be trained on all this stuff. That would be like a misappropriation of resources of anything else. But when you take hold of the title of being an independent or centrist versus being a leftist, I know fake centrists like Tim Pool, but your values seem to be more nuanced than left or right. Would like to discuss where I just don't want to be grouped with anybody that calls themselves that. All of those people are some of the worst that humanity has to offer.
So if there was an actual problem going on, they would have figured it out. So yeah, there it is. It sounds like you support throwing out any extremists with a green card, left or right. I support throwing out...
To be clear, I don't think Hassan has a green card. Hassan is a citizen of the United States of America, but okay.
Any extremists with a green card. Not extremists, but people that are advocating for and supporting extremist groups that are terrorist organizations, absolutely yes. I don't want them here. Get the fuck out. That's right. Yep. That's exactly right. Get the fuck out. It seems reasonable. You don't live here. You're not a citizen. Get the fuck out of our country. That's what I think. Yeah,
So
I'll
brave.
say it straight out. Yeah, no
How
terrorism.
could
Yeah,
one
exactly.
man be so brave?
Might want to look at how successful the FBI has been. Usually with a lot of things, if they're not successful, it's because they don't care. That's the truth. And they're spread very thin. And so, yeah, there it is. Taylor's looking to get birth rates up. You want to get birth rates up, that's like 10 different things you've got to do at the same time. You can't give moms $5,000 and then expect them to commit to a $250,000 loss. It's a stupid way of looking at it. I wish J.D. Vance would talk about that more, considering how much he talks about it in general, but he never talks about it directly. And so, yeah, that's it. What are your thoughts on dual citizenship? I don't have a problem with it. I mean, what's the problem with dual citizenship? Sure. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, who's against dual citizenship? I'm sure some people are, right? But, like, I'm not. That's fine with me. And, yeah. And we need, what's this here? The trans breeding facility for cis women? Oh, we got that journal.
Okay, it seems kind of like unhinged in general stupidity, but whatever.
A lot of things
What?
as a nurse. A lot of things as a nurse. But one of the things that has always just been so alarming to me is that you see these couples, they've been married 20, 30 years. And you go in to put a catheter in the men, and you can't even find the penis. You're like, it's so small, microsize. You're like, where is it at? And then I always used to glance at the wife like, wow, you've been putting up with this man for all these years and putting up with that for all these years. My hat's off to you. That convinced me that a lot of women, probably 80% of women, are unsexually satisfied in their marriages that they've been married to a person for 20, 30 years. And then you let this man impregnate you on top of that. How did he even get you pregnant? Like, what was that process like?
Don't turn into an incel. Don't turn into an incel. Don't turn into an incel. Are you taking a Factorio break from Doom when it comes out? No. Once I finish Factorio, we're back on the politics grind, okay?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day.
You would be surprised by the amount of nurses that privately comment on patients' bodies like this. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I am surprised that she's stupid enough to say something publicly. That's really dumb. That's incredibly fucking stupid, but whatever.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. My apologies if my presentation in this video is not very good. This is an emotionally charged topic for me because I've gone out with people in the past who have dealt with individuals in their childhood life that were similar to what I'm going to describe here, so it's a personal topic for me that bothers me very much. I'm going to be following up on the video that I did on Better Way Electronics the other day. Before we get started on the video, there's two things I have to go into because this gentleman has repeatedly tried to strike my videos down on privacy and defamation claims. The first thing we need to go over when it comes to privacy and doxing, that the messages that I'm going to be showing in this video are messages back and forth between a WhatsApp number and his customers, and this WhatsApp number is public on his business website. If you go to betterwayelectronics.com.au, you'll see that there is a text or WhatsApp right here. This is a public business phone number. So for me to share this phone number is not a violation of his privacy because this phone number is publicly available on his own company website. And the customers that have showed me this correspondence with him have given me full consent to show their correspondence in this video. The second thing that I'm going to go over here is the defamation claim. I'm going to be reading you articles from credible Australian news websites as well as court websites. If you are somebody from YouTube,
it's only a HIPAA violation if the patient is identifiable. You can talk about patients if you anonymize the information enough. That's how case studies and everything work.
Who's listening to this and you think that there is an issue with privacy or defamation, just look it up for yourself and you'll see that those claims are complete utter nonsense. So let's get into what we're going over here. So BWE has a piece of software that allows you to better understand what's going on with your PlayStation. This allows you to diagnose and repair the console in a way that you wouldn't be able to without his software. I will give him credit there that he's damn good at what he does at making software that makes it easier to fix a PlayStation. The problem is that his software has
Oh, look, he's got a friend for the video.
A very, very weird type of spying DRM in it.
Wait, hold on.
I will give him credit there that he's damn good at what he does.
Hold on, I need to, sorry, fuck, this is techno. I need to actually listen to this. Stop reading chat, okay.
This video. The second thing that I'm going to go over here is the defamation claim. I'm going to be reading you articles from credible Australian news websites as well as court websites. If you are somebody from YouTube who's listening to this and you think,
I hate those people who call themselves a centrist as well, considering I call myself a centrist, but wouldn't the same logic apply to unhinged leftists who have the same title? Maybe. I mean, it depends. Some words are worth saving, some aren't. I'm not really, I don't think, a centrist or whatever. I think I'm pretty left. It just depends on what you're talking about, but
that there is an issue with privacy or defamation, just look it up for yourself and you'll see that those claims are complete utter nonsense. So let's get into what we're going over here. So BWE has a piece of software that allows you to better understand what's going on with your PlayStation.
Okay.
This allows you to diagnose and repair the console in a way that you wouldn't be able to without his software. I will give
or maybe he'll explain it, never mind.
him credit there that he's damn good at what he does at making software that makes it easier to fix a PlayStation. The problem is that his software has a very, very weird type of spying DRM in it where it can tell what you're running on your computer. If you're
Okay, because my question was going to be, okay. How does this software interact with your PlayStation? Do you install it on your PlayStation? If you install it on your computer, how does it diagnose your computer? Hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, I banned a guy earlier for this. Okay, all right, I'll ban him. This is banned in chat from now on, okay? This type of memeing is funny if you do it to me while I'm offline, or it's funny when you do it to me when I'm offline. That's it, okay? Don't do this stupid fucking meme where you're like, Destiny, don't you think this is really important? And then you link something that's painfully unfunny, okay? Destiny, is this a truth nuke? Yes or no? And it's some retarded, like, 50 million year old meme about Asmongold, okay? When I'm streaming, you know how like people are like, oh, you're not listening to video, that's why you missed it. I'm trying to keep up with all 3 chats at once. I'm also opening links in the background to see if it's something that's relevant to whatever's going on. When you link like the most painfully unfunny fucking memes in the world, like Destiny, don't you think it's important? It's like, okay, is this relevant? And you click it, and it's like a picture of like a cat's throbbing cock or some bullshit. I'm like, why? Please don't tag me with the waste of time bullshit like this. It's not funny. No one in chat gives a fuck. Nobody's laughing at you. Everybody hates you. You have the micro dick that black nurse was talking about, and she was right to make fun of you for it. Please, Christ. Okay.
If you're running software, very weird type of spy.
Do you use leftist and Democrat interchangeably, or are you generally referring to left-leaning values universally? Sorry, leftist on online discourse, and in Europe, leftist typically means socialist or communist or illiberal, generally speaking. Very much in the online communities, kind of in Europe. If I say left-leaning or a Democrat or a liberal, that's like a left-leaning person, like a Democrat. But leftist generally implies like socialist or communist in some circles. For other people, it means Democrat, but it's whatever.
DRM in it, where the problem is that his software has a very, very weird type of spying DRM in it, where it can tell what you're running on your computer. If you're running software on your computer he doesn't like, he bans you. If
DRM stands for digital rights management, that's the stuff that you run on a computer to make sure that somebody's not running software in an unauthorized manner. Okay.
If you're not running other software on his computer, he also bans you. Why am I making this video rather than dealing with this privately? I tried to deal with it privately. I asked him to stop doing this to his customers. That was in April of 2024. He continued to do this to his customers, and he defended all of his actions. I made a video going over these business practices. He continued to do this to his customers. 13 months later, he has not refunded any of the customers he's banned, and he tried to have my video taken down from YouTube. That's strike 3, because trying to have my videos taken down from YouTube is offensive to me, since this harms my channel and risks me losing my channel. So I did another video saying, stop doing that and refund your customers. And after doing this video, he then filed further strikes for both privacy, doxing, and defamation on my other videos.
Damn.
That is strike 4.
Wait,
I
sorry.
have given this man 13 months to change his ways. Not only has he not changed his ways, but he's also tried to destroy my YouTube channel. At this point, you leave me very little recourse other than to make the video I'm making now. Jessa Jones, as well as many others, have contacted him in private and politely tried to get him to understand that this is not the way to deal with people. This is on you. Nobody else but you. Let's read one of the most outlandish customer chats I've seen. And to anybody from YouTube who's getting this as a timestamp for doxing him, please do remember that this phone number is on his business's public website as his customer service phone number. There is no doxing here, and Uber Micro Repairs, who sent this to me, has given me full consent to post this to the YouTube channel.
I feel like being centrist, or I feel like centrist / being independent allows more individuality. I lean more left as well nowadays because MAGA sucks, but that separation still provides more flexibility to adhere to self-made values. I agree with you principally, but the issue is that what centrist generally means is somebody who is trying to find 2 political sides, and he wants to find a way to feel superior to both of them. So he calls himself a centrist. That's why I don't like it. That's what the labeling has become. I don't want to fight for it. I don't care that much.
Uber Micro Repairs messages the customer service phone number with the software not working and says, any reason? And he gets the automated message from BWE, and then BWE says, hi, who are you, and what business do you represent? He identifies himself as Uber Micro Repairs. Ah, okay. Uber Micro Repairs asks, any reason for the license to be revoked?
Programmers like to lock down their software to prevent other software debuggers from reverse engineering. Games do the same thing for cheats. No. That's not the issue that people have, isn't locking down software. The issue that people have is, especially for anti-cheats, and it sounds like it does this for DRM, is what it sounds like is happening is this form of digital rights management is basically gaining access to and then is swimming through everything that's stored in your RAM, and it's looking for programs that it doesn't like because it thinks that you might be using those programs to violate the DRM. So for instance, in the best case scenario, it might install itself while you're using this program, and it's looking for, say, a program called screencapture.exe, because it knows that if you're running that program, you're trying to record something that maybe the author or the owner of the DVD or whatever doesn't want you to record. But the problem is that stuff like that, in order to function, is generally incredibly invasive. If stuff is swimming through your RAM looking for what's there, I think theoretically, I don't know what modern computer encryption in terms of RAM security on desktops is like, but if you have access to somebody's RAM, I think you can look through a lot of shit. You could theoretically, I think, record keystrokes or maybe even more. You can dig a lot of stuff out of there. It's really spooky. So
BWE links to the terms and conditions without saying which term. Uber Micro asks, please point out the one that I have allegedly broken. BWE says, please read it before asking me to read it for you. Though given you've accepted it, you've surely read it.
who's doing customer support individually on Telegram or WhatsApp or whatever? I don't know. I don't understand, is the repair shop installing the DRM to customers' machines? It sounds like he sells software that allows you to troubleshoot issues on your PlayStation, which it sounds like is good, or the software is good, but it sounds like he has an incredibly invasive DRM to prevent people from pirating the software, is what it sounds like.
Can you tell the assault and passive-aggressive, arrogant prick in this, for lack of a better way to put it? Is that the way you treat people that have paid you? I'm not a mind reader. Please enlighten me on the terms you think I have broken. As far as I'm aware, I did nothing wrong. That software was last used on February 15, 2025, and since that day, the laptop was on my shelf with a dead battery. So again, please let me know what I did wrong. BW responds, then no loss? Sorry, what does that mean? BWE asks, is there any particular reason you're trying it today? So he is...
Wait, what? Hold on. Okay. Any reason for the license to be revoked? Please point out the one I have allegedly broke. Please read it before you're asking me to read it for you, though given you've accepted it, surely you've read it. Oh, nice. That's a good one. I'm not a mind reader. Please enlighten me on the terms you think I've broken. As far as I'm aware, I did nothing wrong. The server's been last used on, yikes, European date format, February 15th. And since that day, the laptop was on my shelf with a dead battery. So again, please let me know what I did wrong. Then no loss? Question mark? Sorry, what does that mean? Is there any reason you're trying it today? How much, just curious, how much did this software cost?
Sorry, what does that mean? BWE asks, is there any particular reason you're trying it today? So he is implying that because Uber Micro has not used this software in 2 or 3 months, that there's no loss if his access to it is revoked. This is an Axiom M3 speaker that I have on my desk. I bought them 2 years ago. This has not been hooked up for a month because I have my amp at my store powering a different set of speakers. Imagine if Ian Colquhoun and Alan Loft came to my house, took my speaker, stole it, and then said, well, you're not using it right now anyway because you're using a TLCS 3.6 instead of mine, so clearly it's no loss that I've stolen your speaker. My original question still stands. Why have you revoked the license? Reading the terms does not give me any indication why you chose to revoke it. You banned me from your Discord, and the only interaction I had in there was giving you a thumbs up on your comment when you added me. You know exactly why, but let's stay on topic here. Please give me the reason for revoking the license. BWE says, I believe you already know. Uber Micro says, I need you to tell me. BWE says, and I suppose your actions here are kind of telling the character you possess. You don't need anything. I think it's best to use some other software. Perhaps the coder's tool may suit you. You see the path of other software.
Okay, one of the things I've expressed to people is it's good to be a good person. It's okay to be an annoying person. It's okay to be but if you're going to be an annoying person, at least have like the self-awareness to know that you're an annoying person. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses are incredibly important, especially, really for everybody, but especially if you're going to be a small business owner, okay? I don't know how many people work for this guy, but hire somebody to do PR, because this ain't it. You can't be this snarky and rude with fucking customers, unless you're some crazy multimillionaire, or you just have so much market power demand that you think you're invulnerable to controversy or whatever. Like, this is a very, very, very bad customer interaction. Jesus. Get ChatGPT to do it. I'm sure there are bots now that'll do customer service for you. Holy fuck.
Perhaps the coder's tool may suit you.
I honestly have no interest in talking to someone as disgusting as yourself.
You see the passive aggression over there? Perhaps you should use somebody else's software.
I wouldn't even call that passive aggression after that last one. That's just like aggression. Like, bro, chill.
Imagine if Alan Loft at Axiom saw that instead of using the Axiom M3 tie, that I was using the TLCS 3.6, so that was his justification for coming into my house and taking away the Axiom M3. Perhaps you should just enjoy your teals. That's insane. This is the type of jealousy that I would expect from a toddler, but that's actually insulting the toddlers because I don't even expect a 4-year-old to be this petty. Well, it would seem you're avoiding the question. End of conversation. I honestly have no interest in talking to someone as disgusting as yourself. Please stop talking to me. Thanks. This is not how somebody who is emotionally and mentally healthy responds to a customer. Don't ban customers because of this.
Like, you're setting yourself up for, like, how many moments have we watched, like, go viral with stuff like this, where there's a horrible customer service interaction? Why would you do that? I don't know.
Oh, I get it now. Phil shouted me out in his video, which he did off his own back, I might add. I see now. BWE. I don't watch his videos, and I don't see how that would warrant anything. Micro says, so I'll take that this decision of yours is theft. BWE. You can take it however you please. Pursuant to my terms which you agreed to, you're banned. Uber Micro says bye.
Damn.
BWE says your service is terminated permanently. Bye. You've also
Damn.
broken another term just now, so feel free to base whatever reason on that then. Keeps it simple. What the hell, man? Uber Micro Repairs. People need to know that you are avoiding a simple question. BWE. All private communications between Betterway Electronics and its customers are strictly confidential. Unauthorized disclosure, including sharing email or messaging platforms such as WhatsApp, will result in the immediate termination of all services. Uber Micro. That is the only term that I've broken, and it is after you have revoked my license. BWE. It's not the only one, but it's the latest one. Uber Micro says, well, tell me the other one. BWE says, I'm not interested in having my conversations leaked. Thank you.
Jesus. All private communications between Betterway Electronics and its customers is confidential? Okay.
Uber Micro. Well, stop conducting yourself this way and be civil with your customers. BWE. And you're civil? Uber Micro. I'm asking a simple question. I've not said anything to you to cause you harm that would warrant the license being revoked. Please point to me the reason why you revoked the license, and that will be done and dusted. Again, keep in mind, he said that he was revealing messages and that's why the license was revoked, but he only shared messages after his license was revoked without reason. You're avoiding the original question. Sorry, but I value my privacy. Perhaps you should have been cognizant of the terms. Well, this is unproductive. I'm cutting off any communication with you now. And there's a reason he values a certain privacy of certain matters, and we're going to get into that. The matters within which he values privacy the most are matters that are completely public and public record. Let's go over the second time that he has treated a customer this way. He's going to make fun of a customer for not wanting to give him his state ID in spite of the fact that this gentleman's own business website uses somebody else's name. If you take a look at the whois for betterwayelectronics.com.au, the person who owns this is not Louis. It's not him. His domain name is registered to Julie Marie Miller Morrison. So his domain name for his website and his business is registered to somebody that's not him. Keep that in mind when you see how he's going to berate and make fun of this other customer. Hello. I'm getting incompatibility error 12 and trying to use your code reader. I have been using it for months without issue. I haven't made any changes to my computer. I don't understand. Right. Please help. Jeremy, Lake, DRP Fix. Thank you for contacting Betterway Electronics. Please let us know how we can help you. Thank you for your message. We're unavailable right now. Blah, blah, blah. He sends a message which is a picture of what's going on with the software. Betterway Electronics responds with the URL to incompatible error information. The customer says, I don't know what any of that means. I don't see a reference of error 12. I closed everything out on my computer, turned off Windows Defender. It still will not work. Rip. Nothing else is running. Rip. I don't know any other code reader software. Please help.
Rip.
BWE. Why do you think you need a reference to 12 and there's also no reference to 1 or 2 or 3? Isn't it obvious it's for any of these? Anyways, please send photo ID that matches your purchase.
Why is this guy doing tech support? Jesus.
He's asking for photo ID from the customer. The customer doesn't send photo ID, but he responds with a photo of his
Wait, what? Who is this guy? So when you're driving and a cop pulls you over, you show him this? What the fuck?
Receipt. I believe this is a screenshot of the receipt that has the invoice information, and it has the last 4 digits of his credit card, which I have censored from this screenshot. BWE makes fun of him and berates him and says, so wait, when you're driving and a cop pulls you over, you show him this? The customer responds, it's a business credit card in my father-in-law's name. I'm not asking him for a copy of his ID. Louis, so you don't exist and he doesn't exist. And then he links to the terms. BWE is mocking this customer for not wanting to give him his state ID. He's mocking him for showing the receipt for the software, in spite of the fact that on his own website, he doesn't even have his own name attached to it. Wrong key. This is not your name, sir. Yet you're making fun of people who may have somebody else at their business do this. Steve will use my credit card because it's my company and Steve is the manager of it, and that's going to have a different name on it. If Steve asked for my photo ID because our copy of QuickBooks or something stopped working, I would say no. If a customer has sent you both their email address, proof that they've paid you, their invoice number, and everything else, you have everything that you need to ensure that their license number is then going to work. You don't need their state ID. And I find it very strange that somebody who won't even attach his name to his business website is then making fun of somebody for providing a receipt in response to a request for them to prove that they purchased the software. I'm going to read one of the last emails before digging into his business that made me feel sick. I'll just read this. I'm not going to put his name or anything on screen. Email correspondence with BWE. Note, this correspondence is immediately after Hurricane Helene hit us. I am located in Asheville, North Carolina, and had no cell phone or internet or power from September 24th close to the end of October. Insurance denied most of my inventory and workshop tools that were damaged because they didn't have flood insurance. Nobody did. With the small bit of funds I had left, I made a decision to try to Hail Mary and bought a generator to power a select bit of old bench tools, and I drove a few hours to get service to buy BWE's product and download. This was an attempt to cut my diagnostic time down substantially and hopefully stay alive by fixing the more advanced issues PS5s I was sitting on without access to the internet to locate schematics and information I would normally require. Instead, it cost me hours of time driving to get service to communicate with him, trying to get his product working, and in the end losing both time and money with zero return outside of another brick stacked on a mental and financial breakdown. This man took my family and my business at our lowest, a time I cried more than I had in my entire adult life, and I'm 38 years old, and grinded his heel in. I very rarely speak negative about anyone, and if I do, I'm quick to apologize and feel remorse. This may be the one exception I have and ever will have. Of everything destroyed, the mountain of debt and toll my family and I were walking with, the scar from Louis kicking me when I was at rock bottom will be the only thing that time won't heal. Thank you for being the voice for businesses like mine who are silently working to stay alive. It means far more than words could describe. And yes, Louis did talk to this man in a worse manner than he spoke to the other two. Made me sick. Let's talk about BWE. I'm Louis. I have a master's degree in cybersecurity, a bachelor's in management, a bachelor's in information systems, and a diploma in business. I'm currently undertaking a PhD in cybersecurity. So he's going for his degree, and he lives in Brisbane, Australia. If you take a look at his GitHub, there's a few things you're going to notice. The first is that the commits started around 2018, and second thing you're going to notice is all these weird underage-looking anime girl-looking characters over here. Ooh. They show up a lot on his YouTube channel, and they show up a lot over here. And this is all going to come into context at one point. Remember this, and remember that most of the commits here are starting around 2019, end of 2018. His website is registered to Julie Marie Miller Morrison, not Louis. Who is Julie Marie Miller Morrison? Julie Marie Miller Morrison is somebody in Australia that owns Phase 4 Modern. She's listed under this business name. What is Phase 4 Modern? Phase 4 Modern, it looks like a record and cassette store. Nothing wrong with that. You know, you just like a place where you could go to get old records. Pretty cool. And it says in both this article and this article that Donat Harahaj and Julie Morrison own this place. If you look down here, it says that the owners are Donat Dani Taharaj and Julie Morrison. Why do these people matter? If we look up Donat Taharaj, he also is listed as one of the owners of Phase 4 Records. Now, wonder who's related to Donat Taharaj. Do we find anybody? If you take a look, you'll find this gentleman over here.
Osama bin Laden.
Louis Tahiri, whose name used to be Luan Taharaj. So from May 2010 to July of 2024, this man's name was Luan Taharaj. ABNs are kind of like social security numbers in Australia. Your name can change, but this always stays the same. His name is Louis, the name that we know our individual. Where does he live? Main business location. When you take a look at the postal code, Brisbane, Australia, right where his business is located. Now, let's take a look at when he was registered to do business. He was active from May of 2010 to June of 2013. So he ended it around June of 2013. And then he was active again on October of 2022 to the present. Now, what may have happened in June of 2013 that caused him to stop doing his business? This is. You ready? 1, 2. Brisbane court jails man for 12 years over internet sex offenses. A Brisbane court has jailed a man for 12 years for offenses, including using the internet to procure underage girls for things that you need a VPN to view on the internet in Texas. The Supreme Court has been told that a 24-year-old Luan Taharaj has contacted girls aged 13 and 14 on the website Vampire Freaks. He hacked the computer of one of the girls in southern New Wales and threatened her if she did not strip and engage in sexual acts on webcam. Police found 180 child things you can't view on the internet in Texas without a VPN, images on his computer, and that he had bragged.
To be clear, I don't think you should be viewing these on any computer in the United States, but
online about his conduct. He posted images on 2 internet sites along with comments like epic win and enjoy and learn from the master. No remorse. Justice George Freiberg said Taharaj had shown no remorse and ordered he serve half his 12-year term before being eligible for parole. He urges parents to only allow their children internet access in shared spaces. When you take a look at the rest of the case, there's an entire thing over here. This is public from Australia's website, Australia government. So if anybody's watching from YouTube and they think I'm making this stuff up, View this website for yourself. I'll link it down below. I'm going to read you some of the highlights of this. Using a carriage service to access child abuse material, count 5. And knowingly possessing child exploitation material, count 7. Where the appellant befriended a 13-year-old girl on the website Vampire Freaks. She asked him about the program to help her get more friends on MySpace. He turned on her webcam remotely. She tried to block him on MSN Messenger. He made a countdown appear on her computer screen and said he...
I think it means that it's lolly, not actual child porn. Wait, what? Hold on. What? I thought he said he was bragging about getting actual underage people to... Did I mishear? "24-year-old Luann contacted 2 girls aged 13 to 14 on the website Vampire Freaks." I don't think that's a lolly. I think that's a real person.
To this. Using a carriage service to access child abuse material, count 5. And knowingly possessing child exploitation material, count 7. Where the appellant befriended a 13-year-old girl on the website Vampire Freaks.
Yeah.
Computer if she did not unblock him. She complied. He told her to strip on webcam, threatening to
Oh, he's replacing the word porn with the thing banned in Texas. Gotcha, okay.
destroy her computer and hack all her online accounts if she did not. He instructed and told her to masturbate on webcam and write something on her breasts. She acceded, knowing the incident was being recorded. He said, and I quote, "I am Ruffles. I destroy lives. Who wants this video? I make a girl cry. I force her to strip and F herself. I force her to finger her... and lick her fingers. I then make her write a greet to a mate of mine on her tits. Epic win?" On another site, he wrote, "and enjoy and learn from the master." The appellant had shown no...
All right. I know that for a lot of people, child anything is just like bad and they just have no concept of like granularity on it. But like this guy, this is insane because it's like there might be people that are into fucking kids or jerking off to kids because they are sexually attracted to kids or whatever, right? And abusing children that's already bad. This guy, the fact that you would go like a step further and you're like trying to actually sexually exploit, like for real exploit, not just like get off to the kids, but you're like mind fucking the kids that you're also trying to like e-fuck. That's like it's like another level of depraved shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? Why?
No
Jesus.
contrition, continued to deny responsibility, and was proud of his own cleverness in orchestrating the offending. He did not cooperate with the authorities in the administration of justice. With time for rehabilitation to occur, the appellant's denial of responsibility and lack of remorse did not suggest these prospects were promising. There was going to be a 12-year prison sentence. However, this wound up being commuted to a 4-year non-parole period. There should be a non-parole period of 4.5 years. Case, August 2013. When did his business first end?
Also, wait. Why wouldn't he change his name more? Like, oh, hey, is this the guy who raped 400 people? No. I'm Stefan Borinelli. You're thinking of Stephen Benelli. Way different. I don't even know who that guy is. Like, what?
June 2013. 4.5-year parole period. When would he have been active again? 2018. Wayback Machine. Let's check his website. When did his website become active? 2018. When did he start making commits to GitHub? What did Luan do to the 13-year-old girl?
All right, there you go.
He hacked her computer and he messed with her. What does Louis identify as? A hacker. I eventually shifted my focus from hacking to reverse engineering. What does he do to his customers? He screws with them. He messes with them. He gets access to their computer. He messes. And then he treats you like a piece of garbage. What did he do to these girls? I am Ruffles. I destroy lives. Who wants this video? I make a girl cry.
Why would you do
Enjoy and learn
Jesus
from the master.
Christ.
The applicant shows no contrition, continued to deny responsibility, and was proud of his own cleverness. With time for rehabilitation to occur, the appellant's denial of responsibility and lack of remorse did not suggest these prospects were promising. Keep that in mind. When you Google this guy's name, Louis Taharaj, Queensland University of Technology, Brisbane, Australia. Louis Taharaj, Department School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. Where was this guy going to school when he was arrested? Queensland University of Technology. Now, when you look at the website, his name's not there anymore, but it was there before because it was screenshotted 2 days ago. It stopped being there yesterday, one day after I made my community post saying I was looking into information about this guy and looking him up. Really interesting coincidence that his name was here for a decade and it disappears the day that I make my community post. He bragged on the internet that he made a 13-year-old girl defile herself and advised others how they could do the same. He'd leave his Rolex watch, gold rings, and cash on his desk in view of the webcam when he spoke to the girls. When you look at the court cases, they bring up a gold Rolex as part of the evidence. And when you look at his videos on YouTube, Better Way Electronics, what is he wearing?
Why would you keep it? No, my God. And despite all this fucked up shit, if he served the time in jail, should all this be dug up? Is there indication he's being shady with kids again? There's probably arguments on both sides of that when it comes to sex offender registry stuff. The problem is you can never have an honest conversation about this because for all the rehabilitation people, when it comes to child stuff, they don't believe in any of that. They think that that should probably follow you around forever. The only reason why I could see it kind of being relevant here is the fact that the guy's putting software on computers that might be gaining too much access to the information on them, which might be relevant to criminal past. Should that be relevant now? I don't know. That's a oof.
Over here. What kind of watch is that? And what color is it? Every one of the videos this guy makes has this little underage looking girl over here with the pink eyes in the bottom of the screen. Same as the shit that I see on his GitHub. What's that all about? There are two types of mental illness in this world. The first type, anxiety, depression, borderline bipolar, schizophrenia. People got problems, and I have infinite empathy and sympathy for people with those problems. I'm never going to crap on you for having a problem like that. These are people that they have their issues. They may make life difficult sometimes to the people around them, but they don't mean bad. And then there's this shit. This is not fixable, in my opinion. As the court said, with time for rehabilitation to occur, the appellant's denial of responsibility and lack of remorse did not suggest these prospects were promising. The exact same mentality and the exact same kind of stuff that's being said to these 13-year-old girls is the exact same attitude he has when he's messing with his customers, taking control over their computer, telling them what they can and can't do, laughing and screwing with them. In my opinion, with this type of mental illness, hurting people is the point. It's not like you've hurt somebody as a byproduct of anxiety or depression or schizophrenia or borderline or bipolar. With this mental illness, the intention is to hurt people and screw with them. People like this do not stop. And this is something I've had to learn the hard way, as a kid and as an adult. They don't stop until they're held accountable and responsible. I'm going to ask everybody that's ever been banned from his software without receiving a refund, anybody who's ever had this experience, to submit the facts and the truth of their experience to every one of the consumer protection agencies I'm listing in the pinned comment down below. But that's not enough, because even if everybody does that, as long as his software is better than the open source software in any way, there will be a demand for it and people will pay for it. And I find the idea of this man making money while doing business in this way unacceptable and reprehensible. So I'm going to announce another bounty. $1,000
to reverse engineer the program?
To the next 5 people that the coder tells me over the next 90 days have contributed the most to making his software better than BWE's. When you have the means, you have the responsibility. And I'm lucky enough at this point in time to be able to fund software that makes the repair community and end users' experiences fixing their own devices better. Links in the description down below. Report. Don't think that it's useless. I already lost my money. I'm never going to get it back. That's not the point. You want to make sure that he can't do it to somebody else. For a long time, you've enjoyed feeling like you're in control, making the walls feel like they're closing in on people that couldn't defend themselves. How's it feel when the walls are closing in on you? Usually, I end these videos by saying that's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'm going to end this one on a different note. Enjoy and learn from the master. Anybody else want to file a false strike on my YouTube channel?
I would, but I haven't abused any children yet, so I'll do that first. Video game. Jesus.
Story friend of mine. I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up And he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? I mean, I'll tell you a story.
Okay. Destiny, the whole thing. Bro, these conferences are slop. Do I care?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It's a big day. Should be fun. I don't know. You'll maybe find reasons.
Though we are tempted to lie, honesty will lead us to form connections with other people who might otherwise have been adversaries. In this vein, I recall an encounter I had with a U.S. Customs officer upon returning from my first trip to Asia. The year was 1987, but it might as well have been the summer of love. I was 20, had hair down to my shoulders, and was dressed like an Indian rickshaw driver. For those charged with enforcing our nation's drug laws, it would have only been prudent to subject my luggage to special scrutiny. Happily, I had nothing to hide. Where are you coming from? The officer asked, glancing skeptically at my backpack. India, Nepal, Thailand, I said. Did you take any drugs while you were over there? As it happens, I had. The temptation to lie was obvious. Why speak to a customs officer about my recent drug use? But I had no real reason not to tell the truth, apart from the risk that it would lead to an even more thorough search of my luggage, or perhaps my person, than had already commenced. Yes, I said. The officer stopped searching my bag and looked up. Which ones did you take? I smoked pot a few times, and, I tried opium in India. Opium? Yes. Opium or heroin? It was opium. You don't hear much about opium these days. I know, it was the first time I'd ever tried it. Are you carrying any drugs with you now? No. The officer eyed me warily for a moment, and then returned to searching my bag. Given the nature of our conversation, I reconciled myself to being there for a very long time. I was, therefore, as patient as a tree, which was a good thing, because the officer was now examining my belongings as though any one item, a toothbrush, a book, a flashlight, a bit of nylon cord, might reveal the deepest secrets of the universe. What is opium like? He asked after a time. I told him. In fact, over the next 10 minutes, I told this lawman everything I knew about the use of mind-altering substances. Eventually, he completed his search and closed my luggage. And one thing was perfectly obvious at the end of our encounter. We both felt very good about it. A more quixotic self stands revealed. I'm not sure that I would have precisely the same conversation today, but I probably wouldn't work quite so hard to open such a novel channel of communication. Nevertheless, I find that a willingness to be honest, especially about things that one might be expected to conceal, often leads to much more gratifying exchanges with other human beings. Of course, if I had been carrying illegal drugs, my situation would have been very different. One of the worst things about breaking the law is that it puts you at odds with which, though we are tempted to lie, honesty...
Okay, thanks.
That's why it's not, but I can't imagine, because we have a lot of great things happening. It's been a very strong week and a very strong weekend. Before we begin, let me say a few words about the historic events that took place over the last few days. On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop.
Hot and heavy.
I'm very proud to let you know that the leadership of India and Pakistan was unwavering, powerful, but unwavering in both cases. And having these, they really were, from the standpoint of having the strength and the wisdom and fortitude to fully know and to understand the gravity of the situation. And we helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop. And they have. And they did it for a lot of reasons. But trade is a big one. We're going to do a lot of trade with Pakistan. We're going to do a lot of trade with India. We're negotiating with India right now. We're going to be soon negotiating with Pakistan. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war. Millions of people could have been killed. So I'm very proud of that. I also want to thank Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio for their work and efforts. They worked very hard on that. We also, as you know, created a situation where the Houthis, for the first time ever, have ceased firing. And they've let it be known that they're not going to be firing at American ships anymore, not going to be firing at Americans anymore. This was a heavy barrage that lasted for approximately 50 days. And as you know, they've been in war essentially for forever. But over the last...
Speaking of nuclear weapons, your discussion with Dan was so nauseating. Nuclear winter makes things colder because it reflects sun. Are the clouds actually white? But there's not enough that makes things hotter like Venus. The only thing that can make a planet hot is energy from the sun. No?
10 years have been very difficult for other countries. Nobody was able to do what we did but they stopped, and we take their word for it. The surrogates and them directly said, we don't want to do this anymore. And so we were satisfied with that. In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset.
I don't know why everybody's saying geothermal, unless your core of your planet explodes and just fucking spews all of the lava and all of the whatever up. That's not happening. All of the energy for the temperature or whatever on a planet's body is generally coming from the sun. It comes in some form, is processed by the planet, and then about an equivalent energy is spit out. Right? It just depends on what your capacity for holding that thermal energy is, or holding the totality of energies in the meantime.
And so we were satisfied with that. In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiated.
Venus has little atmosphere, so it can't really retain or block heat. The sides that don't face the sun are super cold, and the sides that are super hot. Everything you just said is true of Mercury, though. You're mixing the planets up, I think. I think Venus has a very dense atmosphere.
It is continuing the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs. And it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States. And they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs because they don't want to pay 25, 50, or 100% tariffs. So they're moving them back to the United States. I spoke to Tim Cook this morning, and he's going to, I think, even up his numbers, $500 billion. He's going to be building a lot of plants in the United States for Apple, and we look forward to that. I really do look forward to that. But the talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest, and they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing. But one of the biggest things that we're doing, and I don't know if people realize this, but we made a great deal with China, great trade deal.
Okay.
But it was a much bigger deal originally, and then they canceled it right in the last day.
Those
Some
darn
of you
Chinese.
faces I remember were there when that happened. I remember you. And we had a deal where they opened up their country to trade with the United States. And they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing. And then 6 months later, we ended up doing a smaller deal. But it was a big deal. It was $50 billion worth of product that they were going to purchase from our farmers, et cetera. And we agreed to that. People thought it was 15 because they were doing 15. We made it 50 because I misunderstood the 15. I said, you got to get 50. Because when I asked, if you remember the story, when I asked, what are we doing with them? My Secretary of Agriculture at the time, Sonny Perdue, said, sir, it's about 15 billion, and we're asking for 15. And I thought he said 50. So I said, so they came back with a deal at 15. And I said, no way, I want 50 because you said 50. They said, sir, we didn't say that. Anyway, bottom line, I said, go back and ask for 50. And they gave us 50. And they were honoring the deal. And we would call them up a lot for the corn and for the wheat and for everything. They were honoring the deal. And then when Biden got in, they no longer honored the deal. There was nobody to call. Okay. I would call on an average of once every 2 weeks to say, come on, you have to speed it up a little bit. And our farmers were doing great. I said to them, buy more land and bigger tractors, if you remember. That's what happened. But the deal was a very good deal. But the best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in. And it would have been a great thing, I think, for China. They would be able to see things that they haven't seen. They would be able to buy products that they have never been able to buy. Okay. Would have been great for American business. I think it would have brought unity between China, better unity between China and the United States.
Okay.
And the bottom line is that they canceled it the last day. We were all set to sign it. And then I went a little bit angry. I got a little angry. I said, they canceled the deal. The deal was done. It was all ready to be signed. And people went over there, came back to me, sir, they don't want to sign the opening up China. Well, the biggest thing that we're discussing is the opening up China, and they've agreed to do that. But it's going to take a while to paper it. You know, that's not the easiest thing to paper. But that's the single, I think, to me. Some people would disagree. Some people would say we're getting a lot of money with tariffs or whatever. But, you know, especially when you add what we already have. Because remember, we're already getting the 50% on steel and different things. That's not included in these numbers. Mm-hmm. So you can add that. But the biggest thing to me is the opening up. I think it would be fantastic for our businesses if we could go in and compete with China. It would be a lot of jobs for China. It would be, I think, at a time when they can frankly use the jobs. And that's what we're talking about. So that's a very, very important element to add. So when Scott, I watched him speak the other day, and I think he didn't want to say it, but I said, it's okay to say it. Look, if we don't get it, we don't get it. But if we don't get it, it won't be a positive thing. But if we do get it, I think it's maybe the most important thing to happen. Because if you think about it, we opened up our country to China. They have very few restrictions. And they didn't open their country to us. Never made sense to me. It's not fair. Mm-hmm. And they've agreed to open China, fully open China. And I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. And I think it's going to be great for unification and peace. China will also suspend and remove all of its non-monetary barriers. They've agreed to do that. Well, they're very numerous. But again, to me, the biggest thing that came out of that meeting is they've agreed. Now we have to get it papered, but they've agreed to open up China. It's going to be great for everybody. And third, I'm very happy to announce that Idan Alexander, an American citizen who, until recently, most thought was no longer living, thought was dead, is going to be released in about 2 hours, actually. And he's going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who's done a fantastic job.
Fantastic.
I know a lot of people that have a lot of talent. I know Steve had a lot of talent. But I know a lot of people with a lot of talent, but there's one that I thought had a special way about him, special personality. Aside from being a good deal maker, had a special way about him, and it was Steve. Knew very little about the subject matter, who does? But he learned it in about 2 hours. And he's been fantastic, so I want to just thank Steve. But they're going to be releasing Idan in about 2 hours from now, or sometime today, let's say. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy. Oh. They're so happy. So it's, as you know, Idan's the only American citizen who's captured and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead. So that's that. So we'll be heading there, and we'll be seeing 3 primary countries. You know all about that: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. On Thursday's meeting with Russia and Ukraine is very important. I was very insistent that meeting take place. I think good things can come out of that meeting.
If you try to build something, but you put something in the thing, does it just get consumed? Like if I put this in here and then I use a suit as an ingredient, will it just be gone forever?
Stop the bloodshed of the horrible. It's a bloodbath. But that 5,000 more, it's really much more, trying to be conservative, more than 5,000 soldiers. Russian, they're not American soldiers, they're from Russia, they're from Ukraine, but they're people. They're human souls, and they're being killed at levels that we haven't seen since the Second World War. And it's every week. A lot of drone fighting. It's a whole new form of warfare, and it's violent and vicious. And so that's it. I'd like to go back to China just for a second. They're very heavy on the fentanyl. We're charging them, as you know, 20% for the fact that they send fentanyl into our country. And they've agreed that they're going to stop that. And, they'll be rewarded by not having to pay, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So the fentanyl should stop. It comes from China. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it comes through our southern border. It comes through our northern border, too. It comes through Canada and comes through our southern border. Much more through the southern border.
Okay.
But so that's a very important subject to me.
Yeah.
Because everybody in this room has lost friends or people that have family members that have died of fentanyl.
Okay.
So there's a big incentive for China to stop, and I take them at their word. They're going to work on that,
For sure.
I think, very hard. And one thing, when they work on something, they get it done. So now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Before I do, I'll sign one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything signed like this, certainly not with respect to healthcare, nothing even close. I'm delighted to be joined on this occasion by Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is doing a really good job, I have to tell you that. CMS administrator and a friend of mine, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
I just find it crazy that 1 million Russians have died in the war. Is that true? I seriously doubt that. That sounds way too high. My guess would be that number is under 100 or 200K. Probably less than that. Probably less than 100K. Dead would be my guess. 1 million casualties might be possible, but...
Who is an amazing guy. I was telling Bobby before, Oz had a very successful show, but it hurt his reputation, because when you're in show business, it hurts your reputation a little bit. It's good for you, but in terms of professionalism and being a doctor, it sort of hurts your reputation. This guy went to the best schools, was the best, top of the line. Then he did a television show, became a success, made a lot of money, all that stuff, but it sort of hurt him. And you know who I compare that to? I hate to say this, but a special woman, Jeanine Pirro. She was the toughest, smartest DA, maybe in our countries, in our cities and states, history, New York. She was really tough, really sharp. Then she did a show. And people didn't think of her quite the same way. She became more of an entertainment person, like Oz. Oz is not an entertainer. She's not really an entertainer, if you know the real story. And she isn't either. She is unbelievable. She was one of the strongest district attorneys in the history of New York. Highly respected, very tough. Went after the drug dealers at a level that you don't see today anymore. And hopefully she's given up she's leaving the #1 show on cable television, one of the #1 shows on television, period. The 5, but they've got great people left behind, but she was a big part of it. And so I equate it to that. Jeanine Pirro is unbelievable. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary
She's one of the people who was one of the hosts at Fox who was complicit in that lie and actively was pushing the lie about the election fraud stuff. I remember her name from the Dominion lawsuit.
A reputation that's second to none, and the job he's doing already has been fantastic. Thank you, Marty. And Director of National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya, who has been, as you know, from Stanford, so highly regarded, and have all been working with us very hard on this. And the question they would ask, being a little bit new to the government aspect of it, is why doesn't somebody fight the drug price situation, meaning equalization? There's a term. It's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term. And I'm not knocking the drug companies. I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies, because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in
in this country. They say the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers, and they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for. And we'll no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. The European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta. They're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric. And they get rewarded 15 billion, 17 billion, 20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you. So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult from what I understand. I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him.
It's just never ending schizo rambling. Like,
a highly neurotic, brilliant businessman. Seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88, and in New York I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked, and it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart.
Do I need to explain like why regional pricing is probably a good thing, and why even if somebody can buy a drug for cheaper than we do, it actually makes the drug cheaper for us? Like if we sell something for $100 in the United States and then we sell the same thing for $10 in Hungary, we're not actually subsidizing them. In a way we kind of are, but they're also subsidizing us. Do we all understand that? I feel like I've explained this like 20 times. Okay, so let's say that I want to create a thing, and let's say that thing that I want to create is going to take me $1 million of research, okay? If I want to create a thing and it's going to take me $1 million of research, all right? So our x-axis here is going to be how much of a particular thing we've sold. And our y-axis will be the amount of money that we've spent, okay? I'll just do 1 million, okay? Okay. If it's going to take me $1 million of investment, okay? Why do we do this every 2 weeks? Because it seems like nobody still understands this, all right? Let's say that it takes us $1 million to do the research and development to create the very first product, all right? At zero units sold, we've invested $1 million, okay? So we've got this point here. At 0 units sold, we've invested $1 million, okay? So if we sell one product, another couple concepts, okay? So you have something called R&D, research and development. These are your initial investments that you make to create a product. So this might be actual research. This might be creating the molds or the factories to create a thing, like in a manufacturing plant or whatever, right? These are all your initial things where you sell anything, okay? Once you've done all of that and you've created all of that, the actual thing itself, like just the raw material cost to make the thing itself, is usually fairly cheap, okay? So maybe we did $1 million of R&D, and now to create like the actual thing that we've researched, maybe it only costs us, well, I'm going to be exaggerating quite a bit, we'll say $1, okay? It costs $1 to sell that particular thing. If we sell one of those things, all right, for $1, okay, we sell one thing for $1, that means that the average cost to us, right, of what we spent $1 million in $1, and we've made like nothing, right? You're out. The average cost per thing is like $1 million for the product sold. Let's assume the raw material cost is $1. We won't worry about price sold, okay? So the average material cost for creating one product is $1 million in $1, okay? If you make 2 products, your average cost per thing sold goes from $1 million to $500,000 because now you've made 2 of them, all right? If you make 4, the average cost per thing is $250,000. If you make 8, it's $125,000. If you make 16, it's $62,500. If you make 32, it's $31,750, whatever the fuck, $31,750. I don't know. As you make more and more of the thing, because your marginal cost of production is so much lower than the actual all the initial R&D, the more things that you sell, the more things that you sell, the more that you recoup the initial R&D, the more your like per product investment decreases. Okay, does that make sense? So let's say that there's $1 million of R&D that goes into creating a thing. All right, we're running this. Okay, so there's $1 million of R&D that goes into a thing, and we'll say that each thing costs $1 to make. All right, that means that we need to look at our market and we need to say, okay, how much do we expect to sell at a given price of a thing? So let's say that we think that we can sell like 1,000 of these units at $1,000 each. Okay, so let's assume that our market will. Okay, well, let's assume that the market will bear $1,000. Okay, per unit, and we can sell 1,000 of these units in our ordinary market, okay? I don't know why I drew a graph. I don't know if I'll use this graph, okay? If it is the case that we can sell 1,000 of these products at $1,000 each, then we'll have recouped our entire $1 million initial investment, and that's good. Now, in a real world, you'd want some profit as well, but we won't worry about that right now, okay? All right, cool. However, all right, if we see that our original market, and we'll say the United States, if the original market can bear that cost of $1,000 per unit, what we could do is we could look at other markets, and let's say we look at poorer markets, let's say South America, Eastern Europe, Africa, whatever, and we go, okay, well, in those markets, they can't really afford $1,000 a pop, but they can afford like $100 each. What we could do is we could go to those markets, and we could see what they're willing to bear, and we could say, okay, well, we'll sell for $100 each, and we'll probably be able to sell like, we can sell like 5,000 units, all right, in those other markets, all right? Well, now we've recouped $500,000. What we could do is we could even lower our unit price in the original market to be even more competitive. We could bring our $1,000 a unit in this original market. We could drop this to fucking $700 a unit, all right? And then we could sell over here for $100 a unit, and we've dropped our price here, and we've engaged in price discrimination. We are doing regional pricing here, and we're making more money overall. Okay, we made something available to these people that they would have ordinarily never bought because they wouldn't have been able to bear the necessary price for this. And in our original market, we were able to drop a little bit as well because now that we're able to sell, remember the marginal cost of production, meaning how much does it cost to just make the next product, right, is very low after you've done all the initial R&D, right? Now what we've done is we've dropped all of our pricing everywhere because we have access to so many more markets, and our original market is generally, is willing to bear the cost of R&D and production, all that, your CapEx outlays, if you will. Now the issue is that the problem is consumers look at this and they go, well, wait a second. You're selling to me for 700 each. You sell over there for 100 each? What? I'm getting ripped off, and I'm subsidizing them, and this is bullshit. Now, in a way, you are kind of subsidizing them because your market was willing to bear such a high cost. You're probably supporting a little bit more R&D, sure. However, in a way, they're also kind of subsidizing you. They're guaranteeing a minimum level of profit for your companies here. They can afford now to sell for a lower price to domestic people because of their regional pricing in other areas. If you get rid of this, okay, because you don't like the difference here, all right, you get ass pain because you see they're spending less. What happens is your companies here are now going to have to sell at a higher price to Americans. The other countries get no benefit now from American production whatsoever. And yeah, that's it. So now by getting rid of this lower price, you think you're helping yourself, but you're not. You're actually just fucking that whole market over, and you're fucking your domestic base over because now they're going to have to pay more because this company now loses access to a whole market of people that they could sell to a product that they've already invested all the R&D into. So, yeah, nobody likes this. Most people don't even believe this is real because people don't like markets, I guess, or want to moralize everything. But can people just abuse the system and buy from the cheaper country? Well, so yeah, some people do this, but it's technically bad because then it's going to hurt your domestic market, and now companies will get rid of the regional pricing. So, for instance, G2A did this in video games a long time ago, where they made available a bunch of domestic or regional pricing things to other people in other countries. Or sometimes people engage in something called medical tourism, where they'll fly to another country to pay for cheaper services there. But if too many people do this, then you lose the ability to engage in price discrimination here. You lose your regional pricing, and then you just have to drop this completely. If they could charge $1,800, why would they not do that and charge $1,700 instead? Well, if they can do a lower price, they can probably increase the amount of customers. And since your marginal cost is so low, you'd probably rather just decrease the price and sell to more people anyway. Also, there's competitive forces at work and everything as well. Does that mean the product is technically overpriced in the main market? Not necessarily. I mean, there's going to be a balancing act between pricing for these two regions, but the pricing, like a market will, remember, supply and demand is the propensity to consume at a given cost per unit is the equivalent to the propensity to create or supply a cost per unit. And that equilibrium of what is a supplier willing to supply at a given price and what is a consumer willing to consume at a given price, that equilibrium is going to be different in different markets. Your explanation makes sense, but it is irrelevant to Trump's example because Ozempic is made in the EU. Nothing is just made in one country these days. I don't know the relationship between all the companies, but my guess is going to be Ozempic probably has a great deal of U.S. firms that are involved in different stages of either manufacturing or research and development or whatever as well. That'd be my guess. I doubt I think it's Denmark, right, where the Ozempic company is, but I seriously doubt that they do all of it on their own. I'm sure there's a great deal of international investment and everything that goes into all of this, but why do you assume that they wouldn't pay a higher price even if it is not equal? The government could subsidize it now. I mean, the government could, but then the government is just giving money then to the companies, I guess. So if the prices were the same, the issue would be that there would not be enough domestic consumers of the drug to support the cost of R&D. Yeah, unless you raise the price in your domestic market. Destiny, stuff like this really exposes your lack of knowledge on subjects, but you yap about it, which you yourself say not to do. Herman Lee, what do you think I'm wrong on? Go ahead. See if you can say something without saying greedy capitalist, subsidize the billionaires, or some other equally fucking retarded thing. We'll wait. So it's stopping people just buying at cheaper prices. Why aren't objects like phones given the same treatment of regional prices? I think they are to some extent, right? Like, don't they sell phones for different prices in different markets? I think that is the case. I could be wrong, but I think that is the case. Like in Australia, aren't things like famously cheaper than they are? I'm sorry, famously more expensive than they are, even when you take into account currency conversion, I think. Destiny, this analysis is good for vastly disparate income nations, but America is getting screwed relative to EU. So America is never getting screwed per se. Technically, even if those other countries, and there are, by the way, ways that the other countries could take advantage of regional pricing, which I'm guessing they probably do. So for instance, let's say that you have a market like the US that could bear $1,000 per unit, and then let's say you have another market in the EU that could bear $800 per unit. But let's say that a European Union country says, oh, sorry, price control, we're only going to pay $100 per unit. Well, the company in the United States would probably still say, well, you know, marginal cost is still worth it for us to do it. We just have to charge our domestic people a little bit more. However, it's still going to be lower than if you only sold domestically. But technically, the European pricing will be a little bit more competitive than it should be otherwise because of the subsidies in the other countries. But the way that you would fight that, if you wanted to, the way that you would fight that is by fighting price controls in other countries for products that you sell to them. That'd be the way you do it. But if you just say, we're just going to make the price equal everywhere by having some arbitrary like restriction or whatever, all you're doing is reducing the amount of investment in pharmaceuticals, you'll reduce the amount of drugs available, and you'll just make it more expensive in the US. Just say price discrimination, and most people would know exactly what you mean. Very few people even know what price discrimination means, but price discrimination just means that you have the ability to charge different consumers different prices. I live this shit. Y'all don't. Big difference. What do you mean you live this shit? Like you work in a company doing orders and figuring out regional pricing? Or you just some retard that buys medication? I don't. Okay, let's see what this guy's saying. Dude, this is not how it works. Bro, you're way wrong here. You're very wrong. Imagine thinking you can export something and charge domestic customers over 20 times the markup. Okay, you're retarded. Check log, daddy. Yeah, okay, it's just retarded. Okay. How do we stop Europe from not paying market value? Ignore that loser. You would fight this would be if you had a real negotiator, if you had somebody that really understood trade, if you had somebody that really was trying to solve problems, this would be the thing you would negotiate on. You would go in and you would say, hey, if you guys want access to American pharmaceutical markets, your price controls need to be negotiated alongside American healthcare consumer companies, insurance companies, whatever. So whatever prices you guys negotiate for yourself need to be collectively organized with the U.S. as well, or you can't, or there has to be some range of acceptable difference from American price. There has to be some controlling it, but that would be like an actual deal that would require people to actually understand the situation and actually try to solve a problem. But nobody's even talking about shit like this because 90% of people don't even understand how this works. And then even if you explain it, most people wouldn't even believe it's a real thing. So. If we wanted to blunt force this, couldn't we just peg our prices to the average EU price? If you did that, then people would stop making drugs in the US because you would lose money manufacturing and developing new drugs. If the EU price control brings down EU prices, US prices increase in response due to shifting consumer surplus. The U.S. responds with their own price controls on the supplier can. Well, as long as the EU prices are still higher than the marginal cost of production, then it still should theoretically drop U.S. prices, even if they're price controlling it below where their market would ordinarily sustain it anyway. Now, if they were price controlling it below the marginal cost of production, then that would cause U.S. prices to rise above what they would even originally be. But then at some point, they'll just stop making these things. But EU researches and manufactures drugs despite the low prices. Do they? Weren't we just talking about Ozempic earlier? Do you think that Ozempic would exist the way that it does if they didn't have access to a US market to sell to? I don't know if that would be the case. I'm not sure. My guess is probably not. It could be that there are EU companies that do pharmaceutical research and they do sell drugs in the European Union, but they also rely on getting some sort of branding in a US market under a different brand, and then it allows them to sell that drug here. Whatever, I don't know what the American version of Ozempic is, or if it's just called Ozempic and then it's just a different company, a US company or whatever. Like, but there is no power that the U.S. government can exercise to negotiate as a buyer for the U.S. market, right? Wrong. There is a huge consumer of healthcare in the United States that could negotiate a ton, and it's called Medicare. But I think traditionally Medicare is forbidden from, or is it Medicaid, or both? Generally, they're not allowed to negotiate drug prices. I think Biden changed some of this, or on some drugs, but... Do you believe that Medicare and Medicaid should be allowed to individually negotiate drug prices? Probably. I don't see why not, because I'm pretty sure most other European companies and European insurance programs, I think, can. So it's kind of weird that we can't. People underestimate how much of a cheat code it is to have access to other international markets, which is why marketing strategists and experts get paid the big fucking bucks. Yeah, but the issue is like we're so mind-fucked on if you see somebody getting something and it seems unfair, for some reason, some part in the brain shuts off and you automatically stop giving a fuck about anything related to your shit, and all you see is the lack of fairness. And it doesn't matter if things are better or worse. Like emotionally, we're better. Emotionally, we feel more comfortable in worse environments if everything is fair than in better environments where we feel like there's an unequal distribution. That's just a very mammal brain thing. I think there's a...
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first.
How much of the price discrepancy is due to price controls as opposed to EU countries negotiating as large buyers? Well, negotiating a price implies a price control. That is a price control. You're setting the price in a place different than where the market might ordinarily settle on.
Experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees.
If you can lower the price in the US by finding new customers abroad and still meet or beat your original sales, you would just lower the price in the first place? No, you wouldn't, because it's all about how many things you can sell to recoup the initial R&D. I don't know how else to explain it than what I said before.
But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's you need to do in a test chamber.
Okay.
And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, it's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task.
Oh, the exoskeleton.
And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
For some reason, there's an issue. Yeah, people view everything as zero sum. So if somebody's doing better than us, then I think for human psychology, you feel better if everybody's doing the same than if you're doing better, but somebody's doing way better. For whatever reason, it's just or I guess I shouldn't say human psychology. It's primate or something.
And we argued about it for about a half hour, and then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, "Look, you got me. You got me.
Yeah,
I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit.
Wow.
It was just one of those things. And the other countries would set a price, and they'd meet the price, and they'd say, if you don't meet the price, you can't sell it in our country. I said, well, then you walk away, and they'll call you back, and they'll sell it in the country. But now they'll have to do that. So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Pharma has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. It's trade. And Pharma is also very powerful. And the Democrats have protected Pharma. This is the Democrats have protected Pharma. These are the Democrats. And by the way, I just called the Speaker of the House, and I just called the leader, our leader in the Senate, John Thune, Mike Johnson.
I don't disagree that Trump's policy is retarded, but isn't he right in principle here that the U.S. spends way more per capita on developing drugs? I don't know. We might, but I mean, America develops a lot of the world's drugs and like cutting edge shit. What are you gonna say? I mean, it is what it is.
Spoke to both of them. I said, when you score, you're gonna have to score two things. You're gonna have to, number one, score that hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is coming in. But even bigger than that, you're gonna have to score that your cost for Medicaid and Medicare and just basically pharmaceuticals and drugs is going down at a level that nobody has ever seen before. It'll pay for the Golden Dome. I see the Golden Dome is there, see? That'll easily pay for the Golden Dome. And we'll have a lot of money left over.
Didn't Kamala also support price controls on Big Pharma? Probably. Everybody loves price controls. They feel really good when you don't understand anything about economics. Because a price control is basically saying like, okay, this thing costs $50, but wouldn't it feel way better if it just cost $10? Let's just say that they have to sell it for $10. That'd be awesome. So like it feels good. But it never works out. It just doesn't work that way.
The Golden Dome, by the way, in this world. Although this world's a lot safer today than it was a week ago, and a lot safer than it was 6 months ago. We had people that had no clue what they were doing. So today, Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year.
Most drug development is done at universities, not Big Pharma. You're completely and totally dead wrong. Universities do not contribute any development towards the production of a drug. Universities engage in a lot of general research, but when it comes to taking that research and crystallizing it in a form to make a medication available to somebody, that's a risk that is borne 100% by a private company, by a private industry. Universities aren't in the business of picking and choosing, which pharmaceutical treatments or drugs or whatever are appropriate. That's what private company investment is for.
2000, think of that. Our country has the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not like they're slightly higher. That 6, 7, 8 times. There are even cases of 10 times higher.
Genuinely asking, what's a better way to prevent price gouging? You have to prove that price gouging is even happening. The problem is Americans just want everything. You guys are just too retarded to ever fucking realize what the fuck you're even asking for. I saw the most retarded fucking thing in the world on my timeline the other day, and most of you guys are I hate all of you. I hate all of you, and I hate talking about healthcare. $453,000 likes. Why do people consider Luigi a hero?
This is devastating to me.
Fighting for his breath, Duran Wells is battling stage 4 lung cancer. The husband and father of 3 is also now battling his insurance company.
I'm really sad that my life is in the hands of these decision makers who seem to make these decisions in such a cold way.
The 59-year-old and his family say Cigna had approved him for procedures that would allow him to be transferred to Northwestern Medicine in Chicago for a clinical trial double lung transplant he had been medically approved for. But Friday, as they were preparing to leave UCLA Medical Center Santa Monica, Cigna denied coverage for both the transplant and medical transfer to Illinois.
The last option we have is for us to take him to Northwestern, period. You know, and I hope Cigna really understands the seriousness of the situation. You know, we're not just a number.
Like, people are mad and are celebrating a terrorist murderer guy because an insurance company won't cover a double lung transplant for somebody with stage 4 malignant lung cancer. Do you have any idea? Also, that what they're even trying to cover, if you read the article, is literally like an experimental, like clinical trial tier treatment. Like, it sucks, but something that Americans just aren't ready to hear is that sometimes people get sick and sometimes they die, and that sucks. But Americans have this weird concept of like every American should be guaranteed basically like immortality or the maximum amount of medical intervention that is even theoretically possible up until the very like it's just not possible. It's not feasible. But what are you gonna do? I don't know. Well, they shouldn't cover it. Didn't they fuck up by saying they would cover for it and then pulling the rug? I don't think that happened. I think that they're being clever in how they're saying, and I think they're lying about that. I think they probably approved some like experimental treatments or some things, but the way that they said that like, oh, well, we can't do this university, we have to do this one now, it makes it sound like they weren't probably willing to go on board with this last one, but they covered others. That's my guess. If they actually did, if they actually said they would and then they take it back, I mean, like, that's shitty. But nobody's mad because of that. They're mad because they think that every single American at every single stage of disease should be guaranteed every single possible experimental treatment, no matter how many surgeons it requires, no matter how much money it requires, no matter how much hospital space it requires, no matter how many, dollars you have to, like, everybody thinks in the United States that we have the resources to give every single person the maximum amount of theoretical medical coverage. It's just not. We just don't have the resource for it. You don't have the doctors for it. You don't have the stuff. You don't have anything. It's just not possible. Would something like this be covered in another country that has universal health care? No, it wouldn't be. But Americans think that in Europe, every single treatment is covered for every single person and but no, it wouldn't be. Darren Wells, 59, is battling advanced lung cancer, and his doctors have approved him for a double transplant, a procedure that his loved ones have described as his only path to survival. However, Cigna Healthcare, his health insurer, has refused to authorize the transplant and the emergency medical transport needed to get him to the hospital for the operation. He needs to be transferred to Chicago's Northwestern Memorial Hospital for the operations. Wells was preparing to be moved from UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center on Friday, but Cigna denied coverage for the procedure and the transfer. ABC 7 reported. Oh, so I don't even know if the insurance ever even covered this. I am really sad that my life is in the hands of these decision makers who seem to make these decisions in such a cold way. Your hands were in the life of God when he gave you stage 4 lung cancer, which sucks shit. That sucks. But like, Destiny, if money is the only obstacle, then there are enough resources. Money is not the only obstacle. You think that it is because you're retarded, but money represents other things in an economy. If you had infinite money for every single American, that still wouldn't give them the medical treatment you want. There aren't enough people that work these jobs to even do these things. Like, that's not how that works. Destiny, you just learned what insurance is. That is the entire point of the concept. No matter how expensive, you get covered because the insurance company took the risk. Wrong, and you're banned. You say too much retarded shit in chat. Alan Green. The father and husband may not survive without immediate intervention, his family says. The last option we have is for us to take him to Northwestern, period. I hope Cigna really understands the seriousness of the situation. We're not just a number, we're talking about his life. The insurer told ABC 7 in a statement, our coverage guidelines are grounded in national clinical standards to help ensure the best possible outcomes for patients. Cigna has a 21% claim denial rate, according to Value Penguin. Nice. The GoFundMe page has garnered $41,000 as of Friday afternoon. The organizer, his friend Scott Curran, is hoping to raise $1.5 million to cover the cost of the procedure, the emergency air transport, post-surgery recovery, and temporary relocation for his family. It's not even, I think, part of the standard of care for this to do these like a double lung transplant. It's not even like ordinary treatment for this anyway, but. But whatever. Okay.
So that you go 10 times more expensive for the same drug, that's big numbers.
Why are generic drugs still more expensive than in Europe? What explains that difference? I actually don't think that's the case. I think generics in the US are cheaper than Europe. It's our brand names, I think, that are more expensive. What is this source from? Oh, source. Understanding the extent to which prescription drug prices are higher in the U.S. than in other countries, after accounting for differences in volume mix of drugs, each one developing targeted policy, clean branding, which one unbranded generic drugs. These results stem from the combination of starkly different price comparisons findings for brand name versus generic drugs. U.S. prices for brand name originator drugs were 422% of prices in comparison countries, while U.S. unbranded generics, which we found account for 90% of U.S. prescription volume, were on average cheaper at 67% of prices in comparison countries, where on average only 41% of prescription volume is for unbranded generics. U.S. prices for brand name drugs remained 308% of prices in other countries, even after adjustments to account for rebates paid by drug companies to U.S. payers and their pharmacies. So healthcare is just really complicated. But so if the pharma executive order goes through, do you believe Trump voters would complain that medicine becomes more expensive, or would they still be ride or die? No, no one would complain because these things would be totally hidden from you. You would just die. That's all that would happen. If somebody had a let's say somebody has a disease, and the disease is called radon, and this disease is treatable with a drug called Raygon that was just recently developed by some company. Let's say that Raygon is developed as a treatment for this disease, but it's like $10,000 a pill, and it's very expensive, hard to get, hard to make. Let's say that you have insurance, but they're like, sorry, we don't cover Raygon. If you have radon, you're just gonna die. Sorry. Everybody would be saying murder all the CEOs, kill all these people, this is horrible. But if we like got rid of all that and we said, fuck this, get rid of that, and then the company disappears and they don't even make the drug, people would just say like, oh no, you have radon? Oh, that means you're gonna die. That sucks. Kind of like how HIV used to be a death sentence, right? Oh, when you have radon, you just die. Sorry. But that's how people would view it. They wouldn't get mad about other drugs or whatever because they wouldn't exist because nobody would make them. So it's.
Even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not population. Pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not a good thing. Now, I think, by the way, I have great respect for these companies and for the people that run them. I really do. And I think they did one of the greatest jobs in history for their company, convincing people for many years that this was a fair system. Nobody really understood why, but I figured it out. For years, pharmaceutical and drug companies have said that research and development costs were what they are, and for no reason whatsoever. They had to be borne by America alone. Not anymore, they don't. This means American patients were effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany, in all parts of the European Union. They were the toughest of all. They were nasty. And I see that with trade too. European Union is in many ways nastier than China, okay? And we've just started with them. Oh, they'll come down a lot. You watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. They sell us 13 million cars. We sell them none. They sell us their agricultural products. We sell them virtually none. They don't take our products. That gives us all the cards, and very unfair. So they're going to have to pay more for health care, and we're going to have to pay less. That's all it is. And believe it or not, because it's really the world we're talking about, not just the European Union, but because it's the world, the numbers are for the health.
What if someone pays into insurance for 20 years, only getting checkups each year? Are they entitled to the cash in, or is it always a gamble? No, insurance should always be a loss on average to the person paying into it. You need healthy people to subsidize insurance for the people that are super sick that need the coverage from it. Like, that's just how insurance has to work.
Healthcare company, not as bad as you would think. They'll make the same. I think the healthcare companies should make pretty much the same money. I really don't believe they should be affected very much, because it's just a redistribution of wealth. It's a redistribution where it could be the same top line, but it's going to be distributed differently. Europe's going to have to pay a little bit more. The rest of the world's going to have to pay a little bit more, and America's going to pay a lot less. Again, because it's a much smaller population than when you think of the whole world. So basically what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize. We're all going to pay the same. We're going to pay what Europe's going to pay. We're going to all pay. Now, there may be some countries in dire need, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and help them. But it's called most favored nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. We will get whoever is paying the lowest price. That's the price that we're going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than another country. Whoever is paying the lowest price, we will look at that price, and we will say that's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations.
So shouldn't there be hardcore legislation on the amount of profit insurance can make, even more than they do now? It is the most, people that do like those Plan B, Part, whatever, Medicare or Medicaid shit, that it is the most regulated insurance industry. It's the most, I think it might be the most regulated industry, period, in the United States. It is insane how carefully regulated and monitored health insurance stuff is in the US. But again, people think that if every single patient isn't given every single maximum theoretical treatment all the way to the final stage of life, then something is wrong. So that's just the American perspective on healthcare coverage, unfortunately.
That's what it is. One breast cancer drug costs Americans over $16,000 per bottle, but the same drug from the same factory, manufactured by the same company, is 1/6 that price in Australia and 1/10 that price in Sweden. 1/10 for the identical product. A common asthma drug costs almost...
What are your thoughts on profit caps on industries that are in our national interest, i.e. pharmacy? Whatever, I don't care.
$500 here in America?
The answer is it's dumb. It wouldn't do anything, but
costs less than $40 in the United Kingdom. So $40 in the United Kingdom, which is where this gentleman told me he paid a small amount for his shot. But think of that. So $40 versus $500 here. That's not even bad. There are much worse examples. And the weight loss drug, Ozempic, costs 10 times more in the United States than in the rest of the developed world. 10 times more. Why? Why? What did we do? Suckers. But we never had a president that had the courage to do this. And nobody knew the system like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know the system so well.
How much does Vyvanse cost without insurance in the U.S.? It's hella expensive. For 60 milligrams for me, my Vyvanse for 1 month is like $450.
And I don't think it's fair that it benefits Obamacare. Obamacare is a failure. It's not a good health care. It works. I made it work. I had an obligation to make it work.
Oh my God, none of this even makes sense.
Or an obligation to let it die. I chose that we had to make it work. I had to make it as good as possible. And I had a choice. I could have let it fail or make it as good as possible. As good as possible means it was still not very good, but it survived. Mm-hmm. And we did the right thing. But this makes everything work. And I don't want to have a bad form of healthcare work because of the fact I was able to cut drug prices by 80 or 90%. So we're going to maybe come up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a health care that's much better than Obamacare and for less money, which if you guys would work on that along with Congress. But I do want to say that Democrats could have done this a long time ago. They have fought like hell for the drug companies, and they knew they were doing the wrong thing. And it's going to be very hard. I was just telling the leader and the speaker that it's going to be very hard for the Democrats to vote against the one big, beautiful deal. The greatest tax cuts in history, greatest everything, but now you have the big drug prices because that's going to be included. It makes that whole situation...
Why don't you just go to RX for Vyvanse? Because they never have real coupons. They'll save you like $2. So I think you need insurance if you want to get Vyvanse cheaper. Using those other little programs does fuck all.
Different from a scoring standpoint. I just told them, I called them up about this. I said, I'm going to do something that's going to be very monumental, and you're going to be scoring. You better tell your people that this is going to score really well. And then add hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs to your list also. But as big as the tariffs are, this is something that really hits quickly. 5 years ago, I signed an executive order to confront this disaster, but only confront it in a minor way. It was.
I feel like the fact that they are making any money off of it at all is the part that makes people mad. Every dollar they make is a dollar that hasn't gone to save someone's life. When you have a national healthcare system, no one is making money from the denial of coverage, and no one has the incentive to deny care unless the care is necessary. It breeds less resentment long term. Sure, but then people should just go live in forests and then hunt with each other until they die of like random retarded shit. The reality is that like everybody has to make a living doing something. That might rub some people the wrong way. I mean, those are children. What are you going to do? I mean, the butcher that sells meat, like you can't live without food. That guy's making money giving giving you a life-sustaining thing. A person that goes and finds new repositories of fresh water or oil, energy heaters keep you alive in the winter. Fresh water keeps you alive when you drink it. Clothes are necessary so you don't die of exposure. The tailor that makes you clothes is doing something, and every dollar that he takes as profit, it might be clothing that's not covering people. Like, the problem is that people can graduate their expectation or their consumption of things like clothes and homes and food. But when it comes to healthcare, people look at it as though, like, if you were to tell somebody, hey, I'm going to give you enough money so that you can eat every day for the rest of your life, but you're going to be eating like Subway and stuff, the person would be like, oh, well, that's kind of a sick deal. Sure, whatever, I guess. But when it comes to healthcare, people think that they should be able to have Ruth's Chris or a $400 steak every single day for their entire life. And that's what they view as fair. Like, if you're not getting the maximum, best possible thing available for every single person, then something is broken. And like, people will be saying that they're getting, like, this guy for the double lung transplant for the stage 4 lung cancer. Like, holy shit, it's in a clinical trial. This probably wasn't even available as an option 5 years ago. But now that he's not entitled to it, now it's like, wow, this is an evil, horrible system that's killing people. And it's like, sometimes people get sick and die, and it sucks, but...
It was a good confrontation, but never to this extent. It took people a little while to understand a very complicated system. But Joe Biden, without any knowledge of what he was doing, terminated the policy and then pretended to negotiate under a new system.
Where do you get this notion? Get what notion? I don't know why you're asking irrelevant stuff in chat. If it is experimental, do you not see value in what it could teach science? Then have somebody fund it. Then find somebody to fund the research then. What do you mean?
But Joe Biden, without any knowledge of what he was doing, terminated the policy and then pretended to negotiate under a new system. And then you take a look, 5 out of the 10 drugs that he negotiated are now over 200% more expensive in America than the rest of the world, and far more expensive than when he even got involved. Much more expensive than when he got involved. Joe Biden's plan was as you know, because you wrote about it, you don't say it very loudly, but it was a very big failure, was his whole presidency. First, I'm directing the U.S. trade representatives and Department of Commerce to begin investigations into foreign nations that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept bottom line and very low dollar amounts for their product, unfairly shifting the cost burden onto American patients. And we'll be taking a look at that very strongly. The biggest thing we're going to do is we're going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that that game is up. So
I disagree with you in this case. Leukemia is an example with leveled treatments. How do we best find the limit on treatment? Why are private corporations allowed to set that limit when they make money off of you not being sick? They're allowed to do it because people buy insurance and they're the ones that do the calculations for it. If private corporations weren't doing it and the government was doing it, the government would also have limits. You understand that, right? That the government would set limits as well. That if you're in Europe and you have rare diseases, sometimes you just die. Every single European social healthcare system doesn't approve you for the maximum level of treatment for every single disease at all points in time. The resources don't exist in any system for that.
Sorry. And if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars into the United States.
I wonder what type of care Destiny thinks he deserves, especially since he can pay. Whatever I guess I can pay for. What do you mean? Do you think this is a gotcha? I would be more sympathetic to your views if you showed any data explaining how we don't have resources to fulfill all healthcare. I can't help you, dude. I don't even know why the fuck you're in my stream. There should be like a Minecraft YouTuber or somebody for Roblox or whatever that you can go watch. I don't know why you would even try to engage with anything political or more complicated than a grade 1 subject. Just fucking kill me.
It's anymore. It's a very big subject. And they won't get cute, because I'll defend the drug companies from that standpoint. They were given a price by the European unions and other countries. This is what you do. This is what we're going to pay. We're not going to pay any more. Let America pay the difference, because there was a big shortfall. Let America pay it. And that's what we did, but we're not doing it anymore. Next, my administration will secure what we're calling most favored nations drug pricing. The principle is simple. Whatever the lowest price paid for a drug in other developed countries, that is the price.
You say that, Just Brandon, but that's not everybody feels that way. Destiny, that's true, but there isn't enough resources. But I would be better with a governmental body making those decisions that are separate from a profit motive, at least when it comes to a majority of healthcare decisions in this country. You might feel that way, but let's say that you're a father, and let's say that you like busted your ass, you went to medical school, you're a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, and you make a decent amount of money, and now your kid is really sick, and you're like, okay, well, fuck it. Like, I sacrificed a lot to have this job to be able to pay and provide for my family. And then the government says, sorry, you can't pay for that, actually. And your kid is a lower priority, so he dies. And it's like, well, what the fuck is the point of, like, I put all this work in and I have all this, and I can't help my child, I can't help my family, my progeny? Like, the whole point of putting in all this work was to be able to afford things like this, like the most important stuff, theoretically. Now, on the flip side of that, you might have people who are like, oh, so my child dies because his dad didn't have the opportunity to go to medical school or law school. Like, there's going to be pros and cons on both sides. Just don't assume that one side is purely better. There's going to be a give and there's going to be a take everywhere. It's not just strictly better one way or the other.
That Americans will pay. And we're using the term other developed countries because there are some countries that need some additional help, and that's fine. I think that's very good. Some prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 50 to 80 to 90%. Big Pharma will either abide by this principle voluntarily or will use the power of the federal government to ensure that we are paying the same price as other countries. To accelerate these price restrictions and reductions, my administration will also cut out the middlemen. We're going to totally cut out the famous middlemen. Nobody knows who they are, middlemen. I've been hearing the term for 25 years, middlemen. I don't know who they are, but they're rich. That I can tell you. We're going to cut out the middlemen and facilitate the direct sale of drugs at the most favored nation price directly to the American citizen. So we're cutting out, Bobby, the middleman. It's so important, right? They got to do that. They're worse than the drug companies. They don't even make a product, and they make a fortune. It's very smart business people, that I can tell you. If companies make no significant progress toward most favored nation pricing, which we will insist that they do, so I think I'm wasting time talking about it. We're going to insist upon it. And we'll insist, and we're going to help the drug companies with the other nations, because those other nations do a lot of trading with us. They need our trade just like China needed us.
I'm sorry, I'm not answering questions like this. I actually can't even believe how far the average person is behind on this conversation. I'm sorry, but do you have a source on EU denying treatments because of cost constraints? It is very often that they give expensive treatments to old people and weak people, for example, way more than people in the US. That's just not true. I don't know what world you live in where you think that there are infinite healthcare supplies in any country ever. Every single country on the planet right now is starving for medical personnel. Traveling nurses got paid an ungodly amount of money over COVID. Everybody wants more doctors. Everybody wants more hospital beds, more space. Everybody around the world. This is like one of the hungriest professions in the world for jobs. And for you to be like, oh, I don't know. I don't think there are any resource constraints on healthcare in Europe. I'm not even about. Go Google it on your own. Read one thing in your life on healthcare. Holy shit! Oh my God.
Us very badly. They need us just as badly. We will do whatever we have to with trade, just like we did some great things with trade with India and Pakistan. Really helped the situation, very heated situation. Hit us millions of people, more than millions, I mean, many millions of people. And they want to do business with America, but we never used our powers that way. We never knew how. We never had people that knew how to do that. We'll also open up America's market to safe and legal imports of affordable drugs from other countries, putting dramatic downward pressure on prices. And if necessary, we'll investigate the drug companies, and we'll, in particular, investigate the countries that are doing this, and we will add it onto the price.
If that's true, why do people avoid taking an ambulance ride because of the cost? The system is clearly working. That's not true. Nobody does that. Those are fantasies that are invented by epic Redditors on the internet, where they talk about how, oh, my friend was dying, half his head was exploded, but we didn't call an ambulance because we were so fucking scared of the cost. That's just, these are stories that Redditors tell each other to talk. And 99% of these fucking retards are still on their parents' healthcare insurance anyway. Okay? Stop.
That we charge them for doing business in America. In other words, we'll add it on to tariffs if they don't do what is right, which is everybody should equalize. Everybody.
Also, you should have to think about calling an ambulance. The moral hazard there is actually important. You don't want people calling ambulances for every single little thing. There are only so many ambulances and so many ambulance drivers and so many medical personnel, EMTs and stuff available for ambulances. You don't want people calling an ambulance every single fucking time something happens. That type of decision making is fine. You should know when you should call an ambulance and when you shouldn't.
I should say, pay the same price. And special interests may not like this very much, but the American people will. I'm doing this for the American people. I'm doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, probably the drug lobby, drug and pharmaceutical lobby. But it's one of the most important orders, I think, that's ever been signed, certainly with regard to health care or health in the history of our country. And it's an honor to be a part of it. And I'd like to ask Robert F. Kennedy to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out,
oh my God, I needed normal concrete, not refi. I just made all this dumb concrete for nothing.
It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on the side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240. They spend 1/5 of what.
What do you think about states capping the cost for insulin? I think it's good. I think that we just need to have every single thing that we consume that we need, all of the caps, all of the prices need to be capped at $10, and I think that would be the best thing. I'm sorry. That's I just wasn't thinking before, but I think that if we just take all the things that we need and we just cap it at $10, I think that that's the best thing to do. And then I think that'll solve all of our problems, okay? Because then everybody could afford everything. I think that would be the best thing. All medicines, all surgeries, all hospitals, they should just cap it at $10. There we go.
We do. And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen.
Do you not support the insulin cap? I do. I think that the only reason why insulin costs as much money as it does is because greedy, evil execs are making so much money hand over foot, and they ask for all this money for insulin for no reason. And if they just sold it at 1/10 the price, then everything would just be better for everybody. Also, hold on, sorry, we have an ambulance video.